My daughter ignored me at her wedding and replaced me with her mother's new boyfriend. But when it, imagine this, after years of love and sacrifice, you're replaced at your daughter's wedding by a man you've never even met. Stay tuned as we dive deep into a shocking betrayal that will leave you speechless. You won't believe what happens next. I should have known. The signs were there, subtle but persistent, like cracks in the foundation of a house you've lived in for decades. I saw them, but I refused to believe them. You don't expect a house you've spent your whole life building to just crumble under the weight of time and secrets. But that's exactly what happened. I met Claire when I was in my late 20s, full of ambition. A man who believed that love could overcome anything. It was easy to fall for her. She was beautiful, strong, and she already had a daughter, Olivia, who was just 5 years old at the time. I didn't just fall for Claire, I fell for Olivia too. I didn't even hesitate when I saw the way Olivia clung to her mother's side. Her eyes wide with fear, her hands holding on tight as if letting go would mean she'd disappear. Her biological father, Derek, was a ghost in their lives. He'd show up once in a while, maybe to make a promise about some far-off trip or a new bike for Olivia. But he was a man of words, not actions. He never followed through. He'd disappear again, leaving nothing behind but empty promises and the shattered look in Olivia's eyes. Watching her suffer like that, I couldn't just stand by. I wasn't trying to replace Derek. I never told Olivia that I was her new father. But the first time she called me Dad, I froze. It was a simple request. She was struggling with a jump rope, her little face scrunched in frustration, and she asked, "Dad, help me." The words caught me off guard, but hearing them was like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I'd never expected that moment to be so profound. From then on, she never stopped calling me that, and I never stopped feeling honored. The years that followed were filled with moments that should have been ordinary, but to me, they meant everything. Helping Olivia with school projects, carrying her on my shoulders at the fair, staying up late when she had the flu, comforting her when she was bullied in middle school. Those were the things that made me feel like a father. No, I wasn't her biological father, but I was there for her. That meant more than anything. When she got into college, I didn't hesitate. I covered tuition, books, rent. I worked extra hours and picked up side projects just to make sure she had everything she needed. Because that's what fathers do, right? They sacrifice everything for their kids. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. It was subtle at first. Claire got distant, less affectionate, more secretive. I'd catch her staring at her phone late at night, quickly turning off the screen when I walked in. I convinced myself it was nothing, stress, work, maybe she just needed some space. But when Olivia started pulling away too, that's when I should have paid attention. The late night talks we used to have became fewer. She still called me Dad, but there was something in her voice, something off. It was like she was saying it because she had to, not because she felt it. I should have known then that something was wrong. The moment I should have realized everything had changed came a few weeks before Olivia's wedding. I was washing the dishes when Claire casually mentioned, "Oh, David's coming over later." I frowned, confused. "David? Who's David?" Claire smiled too easily, like it was no big deal. "He's a friend of Olivia's, and a friend of mine too. He's been helping with some of the wedding planning." I let it go, but my gut twisted. David. I didn't know who he was, but something in me told me I should. I was busy, working extra shifts to make sure the wedding went smoothly, making sure everything was perfect for Olivia's big day. Too busy to notice that I was being replaced. Then came the wedding invitation. I opened it, expecting to see my name as the one who would walk Olivia down the aisle. Instead, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Olivia will be walked down the aisle by David. I felt the air leave my lungs. David. That man I had never met. The man Claire had mentioned so casually, like he was just another friend. I stormed into the living room, holding the invitation in my hands. "What is this?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Claire sighed, as if she had been expecting this conversation. Olivia made her decision, honey. She wanted David to walk her down the aisle. He's been really supportive through all of this. Supportive? Supportive? I had been the one who had been there for every scraped knee, every sleepless night, every tear-filled phone call. And now, I was just a guest at my own daughter's wedding. That moment was when something inside me cracked. I had spent years thinking that love and loyalty were enough, that if I gave everything to my family, they would see it, appreciate it, and honor it. But that wasn't true. Not anymore. After all the sacrifices, after all the long hours at work, after paying for Olivia's education, I was disposable. Just like that. I wasn't part of their lives anymore, and the worst part was that they didn't even care. I had been so blind. I should have known. When the wedding planning started, I should have noticed. I should have realized that something was wrong when Claire and Olivia started excluding me from everything. The first conversation about the wedding, Olivia and Claire, sitting at the dining table, flipping through magazines, laughing like everything was normal. I had just come home from a long shift, exhausted but eager to help. I kissed Claire on the cheek and ruffled Olivia's hair, like I used to when she was little. "How's the planning going?" I asked, eager to be involved. Olivia barely looked up. "Good," she said, with no excitement, no warmth. Claire gave me a forced smile. "There's still a lot to do, but it's coming together." Something was off. I sat down, trying to make myself feel included, but they exchanged one of those looks, the kind of look that says everything without a word. It was subtle, but it made my stomach turn. "We've got it under control," Claire said quickly. "But thanks, honey." That was the first red flag. The second one came a few days later, when I took the morning off work to meet with the venue coordinator. Olivia had told me she wanted something simple but elegant, and I wanted to make sure everything was just right. But when I got there, the meeting had already taken place. "Oh, Mr. Carter, I didn't expect to see you here," the coordinator said, flipping through papers. "Your wife and David handled everything yesterday." My jaw clenched. David again. That name. I walked out of the venue, my hands shaking. David. That was when the reality hit me. I wasn't just a guest at my daughter's wedding. I wasn't even needed anymore. I wasn't part of their world. And that was just the beginning. What hurt the most wasn't that Olivia chose David, it was that Claire stood by and let it happen. She stood there, defending David, as if he were more important than me. And the worst part? She was right. It wasn't personal to Olivia. She hadn't even thought twice about it. I had given everything, and for what? To be ignored, to be replaced? But this wasn't just about the wedding. This was about everything. The years of love, of sacrifice. The things I had done for them, things I thought would bind us together, only to have them thrown away like they meant nothing. The moment I found that invitation, it felt like the ground beneath me shifted. I was staring at the paper in disbelief. It was as if the world around me stopped for a moment. "Olivia will be walked down the aisle by David." My hands trembled as I read the words over and over again. No. This couldn't be right. I had spent the last 2 decades raising this girl. I had been there for her, every scraped knee, every sleepless night, every tear. I had paid for her education, supported her dreams, helped her when she was sick, when she was heartbroken, when she was lost. I had been her constant, the one she could always count on. And now this stranger, this man, who had been nothing more than a passing name until a few weeks ago, was going to take the most important moment in my life away from me. I should have been the one to walk her down the aisle. I should have been the one to give her away. I felt like I was suffocating. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and the sting of betrayal started to burn in my chest. How could they do this to me? How could Olivia, the little girl who had once called me dad with so much trust, so much love, do this to me? How could Claire, the woman I had given my life to, let this happen? I stormed into the living room, holding the invitation like it was some kind of cruel joke. But I knew it wasn't. This was real. Claire was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, acting like nothing was wrong. I threw the invitation down on the coffee table, the words almost mocking me now. "Explain this to me, Claire," I said, my voice low, calm, but there was something in it. Something dark and dangerous that I hadn't known was there until now. She didn't even look up from her phone. She sighed, like this was a conversation she had been expecting. "Olivia made her decision, honey," she said. Her voice too easy, too dismissive. "She wants David to walk her down the aisle. He's been really supportive through all of this. He's been helping her plan the wedding, and she feels comfortable with him." Comfortable with him. I could barely breathe. I had been the one who had been there for her all these years. The one who had supported her. The one who had wiped away her tears. The one who had stayed up late with her while she studied. While she struggled. And now, I was nothing? Just an afterthought? Supportive? I repeated, my voice almost a whisper, but there was so much emotion behind it, so much pain. I've been supportive for 20 years, Claire. I've been the one who stayed. I've been the one who helped her when you were too busy, too distracted. And now I'm just disposable? Is that it? Is that all I am to her now? Her eyes finally lifted from her phone, but there was no remorse in them. No regret. Just an empty, distant look. It's her decision, Tom, she said, as if this were just some simple decision about what color flowers to choose. She's grown up. She's making choices now. She feels David has been more involved in her life than you have. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. She feels David has been more involved? What the hell was she talking about? I was the one who was there for every single important moment of Olivia's life. I was the one who had supported her through everything. But somehow, in Claire's eyes, I wasn't enough. Not anymore. I should have left right then and there. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. I was too stunned, too disoriented, to process it all. So, I sat there, in that living room, feeling the weight of everything crushing down on me. The woman I had given my life to, the woman I had loved for so many years, had just told me that I wasn't good enough. That after everything I had done, I was nothing compared to David. I had to get out of there. I had to think. But as I stood up to leave, Claire's voice stopped me. It's just a wedding, Tom, she said. It's not the end of the world. Olivia has her reasons. Just respect it. Respect it? My blood was boiling now. How could I respect this? How could I respect the fact that my daughter was throwing me aside for a man she barely knew? How could I respect the fact that my own wife was standing by and watching it happen? I stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind me. I didn't even know where I was going, but I had to get away from them. I had to escape the suffocating feeling that had taken over my body. I drove aimlessly through the streets, the city lights flashing by. But none of it mattered. All I could think about was the betrayal. The coldness in Claire's eyes. The fact that Olivia had chosen David over me. I couldn't understand it. It didn't make sense. How could this have happened? How had we gotten here? I drove for hours, trying to sort through my thoughts, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I wasn't just angry at Olivia, no, I was furious with Claire. How could she let this happen? How could she stand by and watch me get replaced? For 20 years, I had been her rock, her partner. I had sacrificed everything for her and Olivia, and this is how they repay me? By replacing me with a man who didn't even belong in my life. I finally pulled over, sitting in the car with my hands gripping the steering wheel. My knuckles white, the anger wasn't fading. It was growing. It was consuming me. I couldn't let this go. I couldn't just pretend everything was fine. They needed to know what they were doing to me. They needed to understand the pain they had caused. I didn't care about the wedding anymore. It wasn't just about walking Olivia down the aisle. It was about everything. It was about the years I had spent building this family, the love I had poured into it, only to have it thrown away when it was no longer convenient. The next day, I went back to the house. Claire was already there, but she didn't look at me when I walked in. She didn't even acknowledge my presence. It was like I was invisible to her now. Olivia was in the kitchen, but she didn't say a word either. No hi, Dad. No how was your day, nothing. I stood there for a moment, watching them, but I knew I couldn't stay. Not anymore. Not in that house, not in that life. It was like the love we had built had evaporated overnight. Finally, Claire spoke. Tom, I don't want to fight about this, she said, her voice cold, detached. Olivia made her choice. David has been a big part of her life recently, and that's just how it is. You need to accept it. Accept it? My whole body tensed. This wasn't about acceptance. This was about betrayal. And I couldn't just let it go. You don't get it, Claire, I said, my voice trembling with anger. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm not asking for Olivia's approval. But you've just erased me from her life like I'm nothing. Do you think that's okay? Do you think I'm just supposed to sit back and let this happen? She didn't answer. Instead, she turned away, busying herself with something in the kitchen. It was as if she couldn't be bothered to even face me. I had spent 2 decades with this woman. 2 decades of my life, and she couldn't even look me in the eye. My chest tightened, and the pain hit me all over again. This was it. This was the moment I had feared. The moment I realized I was nothing more than a footnote in their lives. I left the house again. This time, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had been replaced, and nothing would ever change that. Not even love. Here's the question. Can a man really come back from being completely erased by his own daughter? With everything on the line, will this family find a way to rebuild, or will it all come crashing down? Drop a comment with your prediction. Comment 1 for redemption. Comment 2 for a final goodbye. You have 10 seconds to comment. Start nows. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for taking the time to comment. Now, let's dive back into this thrilling story. The days that followed were a blur. I spent them replaying every moment, every conversation, every look. How had we gotten here? How had things changed so quickly, so completely? Claire and Olivia seemed to move around me as though I didn't exist. At first, I thought it was just me being too emotional. But deep down, I knew I wasn't imagining it. There was something wrong. There was a distance between us now, a coldness I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just Olivia choosing David over me. No, it was deeper than that. It was the way Claire acted, the way she dismissed me, the way she acted like everything I had done, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every single moment I had spent loving her and Olivia meant nothing. One afternoon, just a week before the wedding, I came home early from work. One had taken the day off to meet with a client, but everything fell apart before I even got through the door. I heard laughter coming from the kitchen. It wasn't the joyful kind of laughter that I used to hear when Olivia was little, when we'd spend time together as a family. No, this was different. This was laughter between Claire and Olivia. But there was something forced about it. Something I couldn't place. I stepped inside the house quietly, trying not to make a sound. But I had already been spotted. Claire turned around from the stove, offering me a tight smile. The kind she gave when she knew things weren't right but didn't want to acknowledge it. "Hey, you're home early," she said, her tone too casual. "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I wanted to talk to you about something." Olivia, sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in hand, barely looked up. She said nothing, her gaze focused on the screen. The distance between us was growing, but I had no idea how far it had stretched. When I spoke again, I tried to sound as calm as possible. "I've been thinking about the wedding, about what happened with the invitation." Claire set the spoon down in the pot, and wiped her hands on the dish towel, still not meeting my eyes. "Tom, we've been over this." "No, I don't think we have," I said, feeling the tension building in my chest. "You don't just change everything like this. You don't just erase me from Olivia's life and pretend it's nothing." I could feel my pulse quicken. I raised her, Claire. I was there for every part of her life. And now, I'm nothing? Olivia looked up then, her expression distant. Her eyes flickered for a moment, then returned to her phone. Claire turned to her, her voice softer, like she was trying to calm the situation. "She made her choice, Tom. You have to respect that. Respect it. Respect that she replaced me with a stranger." My voice grew louder, the frustration pouring out. I hadn't meant to yell, but I couldn't help it. I was there for every single step of her life, and now she doesn't even think I'm worthy enough to walk her down the aisle? There was a long silence. Olivia didn't say a word. Claire didn't answer. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, my hands trembling at my sides. "What happened to our family, Claire?" I asked, my voice now shaking. "What happened to us? We were supposed to be a team, you, me, Olivia. We built this life together, but now it feels like it's all falling apart, and I don't even know why." Claire exhaled deeply, but there was no apology in her voice, no remorse. "Tom, I didn't mean for it to be this way. But Olivia's grown up. She's making her own decisions. You have to understand that." I stepped back, feeling the weight of her words sink in. I had spent the last 20 years of my life thinking that I was building something that would last. But now it felt like everything was being stripped away, piece by piece. My chest tightened, and I had to force myself to breathe. "So that's it? You're just going to stand by and watch it happen?" You're going to let her make this mistake? She didn't respond. Olivia, still sitting at the table, glanced up at me briefly. There was no warmth in her eyes. No recognition. It was like she didn't even see me anymore. She didn't even care enough to argue. I turned away, feeling completely defeated. I couldn't do this. I couldn't stand here pretending that everything was fine. So, I left. Without a word, I turned and walked out of the house. The door slammed behind me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely alone. The days leading up to the wedding were even worse. I barely slept, my mind constantly racing with thoughts of what had gone wrong. I tried to focus on work, on anything that would distract me. But nothing seemed to matter anymore. The wedding was supposed to be a celebration of Olivia's new life, her new family, but it felt like a reminder of how little I mattered. Every time I saw Claire, every time I saw Olivia, I was reminded that I had been replaced. The day before the wedding, I found myself standing outside the venue, staring at the massive hall, feeling completely empty. I had spent so much of my life working to make this day special, to make Olivia's life better, but now it felt like I was just a shadow. The ground beneath me seemed unsteady, like the foundation of everything I had worked for was cracking. I couldn't believe I had let it go on this long. I had sacrificed everything for this family, but now, they didn't even need me. That night, I got a call from Claire. I didn't pick up. I couldn't bear to hear her voice anymore. She left a message, her tone calm, but there was something in it that made my stomach churn. "Tom," she said, "I just wanted to check in. We're all set for the wedding tomorrow. Olivia really wants you to be there. She's upset that you haven't been answering, and I don't want you to miss this." I couldn't bring myself to listen to the rest. I couldn't sit through another hollow apology, another empty promise. So, I turned off my phone and walked away. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. I adjusted my tie, but I hardly recognized the man staring back at me. Who had I become? What had happened to the man who would have done anything for his family? I looked at the suit I had bought specifically for this day, the day I was supposed to walk my daughter down the aisle, and I wondered how I had gotten here. How had I become so invisible in my own life? I didn't want to go, but I couldn't let them win. I couldn't let them erase me completely. So, I went. I walked into that venue, not as a proud father, but as a broken man. I sat near the back, not at the front like I should have been. The wedding proceeded as planned, and I tried my best to hold it together. But when Olivia walked down the aisle, I couldn't breathe. She looked beautiful, like a princess, but my heart broke. She wasn't walking down the aisle to me. She was walking to David, the man who had taken my place. The ceremony was a blur. I couldn't focus. I heard the vows, the laughter, the applause, but it all felt distant, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. My life, the one I had worked so hard to build, was slipping away, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. As the speeches began, I waited for Olivia to acknowledge me. I waited for her to look at me and thank me, but she didn't. David spoke first, about how proud he was of Olivia. Then Claire spoke, about how much David had helped, how much he had been there, and me? I was nothing. I left before the reception even started. I couldn't stand to be there anymore. I couldn't pretend that everything was fine when my world had just been ripped apart. The days after the wedding felt like a slow, suffocating descent. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that Olivia had chosen David over me, or the reality that Claire stood by it, never once questioning her daughter's decision, never once considering how much I had sacrificed, how much I had given for this family. I couldn't escape the crushing weight of their rejection, and every moment, every second, felt like a fresh wound being opened again and again. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about everything that had led up to it, the years of silent sacrifice, the constant effort to keep things together, the feeling of being invisible, of being expendable. Olivia's silence after the wedding was deafening. She didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't ask how I was doing. It was as if I had never existed in her life. A week went by, then two, and it was the same silence, the same cold emptiness. It was as though I had been erased. I couldn't believe it. After everything I had done for her, after being there for her all these years, she couldn't even find the decency to check in, to acknowledge the pain she had caused me. And then there was Claire. Her indifference hurt more than anything. She didn't try to call, didn't ask if I was okay. It was like I had been written out of the script of their lives, a footnote in a story that no longer needed me. One evening, I was sitting alone in my apartment, trying to drown out the overwhelming thoughts that plagued me. I had kept myself busy with work, but nothing seemed to fill the void. The loneliness was suffocating. It wasn't the kind of loneliness you get when you're just by yourself. It was the kind of loneliness that comes when the people you love most, the people you've invested your whole life into, suddenly don't need you anymore. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the silence. I stared at it for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me it was her Olivia. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. What could she possibly want after everything that had happened? I picked it up. Hello? My voice sounded more fragile than I intended. Dad? Her voice came through the phone, shaky, uncertain. I could barely recognize it. The girl I had raised. The girl who used to call me for anything. The girl who used to cry on my shoulder when she was upset, was now a stranger on the other end of the line. What do you want? I asked, trying to sound composed, but the pain was too raw. I couldn't hide it. After everything, after what you did, now you're calling me? There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, like she was trying to find the right words. I wanted to hang up, to end the conversation, to just walk away from it all. But something inside me still clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, she had realized what she had done. That she understood the depth of the hurt she had caused me. I'm sorry, Olivia finally said. Her voice cracked, and I could tell she was struggling to hold it together. I know I messed up. I shouldn't have done what I did, but I don't know what to do. I need your help. I felt the anger rise up in me, burning hot and fast. Help? After everything? You want my help now? After you threw me aside like I was nothing? After you let another man replace me on the most important day of my life? No, Olivia. I can't do this. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when you've made it clear that you don't need me. There was another long silence. I could hear her sniffling on the other end, and it cut me deep. The anger that had flared up suddenly faded, replaced by something else, something I couldn't quite name. It was a mix of exhaustion, sorrow, and regret. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell at her, to tell her everything I kept inside for so long. But when I heard her voice again, soft and broken, all of that anger turned into something more painful. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't know who I was supposed to choose. I didn't know who would be there for me. My heart twisted. It was the first time she had acknowledged how much I had done for her. It wasn't an apology for the wedding. It wasn't an apology for replacing me, for leaving me out of her life. It was an apology for not knowing who to turn to. And in that moment, I felt everything I had been holding back for so long, years of pain, years of sacrifice, years of being the one who always had to hold things together, always had to fix everything, always had to make the family work come crashing down on me. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive her, but I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't about me anymore. This wasn't about my hurt, or my betrayal. This was about her. Olivia, the girl I had raised, the girl I had given everything for, was hurting too. She was lost, just like I had been. And even though I had every right to turn my back on her, every right to say I'm done, a part of me, the part that had always been there for her, couldn't just let go. I don't know if I can help you, Olivia, I said, my voice quiet. I don't know if I can just forget what happened. But I'll listen. I'll hear you out. But you need to understand something. You don't just get to walk back into my life after everything that's happened. You don't get to erase everything I've done for you and think everything is going to be fine. I'm not that man anymore. The man who always gave. The man who always fixed things. That man is gone. I heard her sigh, and there was a sense of relief in it, but also uncertainty. I understand, she said. I don't expect you to fix everything. I just need to know you still care. I paused for a long time before I spoke again. I always cared, Olivia. But you need to understand that care doesn't mean I'll always be here to fix your mistakes. You need to learn how to fix them yourself. We were both silent for a moment, the weight of our conversation hanging between us. I didn't know if things would ever go back to the way they were. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her for what she did. But in that moment, I understood something I hadn't before. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It wasn't about letting go of the hurt. It was about learning how to live with it. It was about finding peace, even if it meant walking away from the people you loved the most. I have to go, I said, my voice quiet. But I'll be here when you figure things out. Just remember, you can't keep running away from the consequences of your choices. You have to face them, head on. And when you're ready to do that, I'll be here. And with that, I hung up the phone, leaving the silence to swallow me whole once again. It had been a week since Olivia's phone call, and the silence between us hadn't been broken. I tried to move on, tried to focus on the life I was rebuilding. But every time I thought I could escape it, every time I thought I could forget the thoughts of her, of Claire, crept back in. I could still hear the tremor in Olivia's voice, the desperation that had broken through the cold distance she'd put between us. She needed something from me, and I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. But the longer I waited, the more complicated it became. Then, one day, just as I was finishing up at work, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Olivia. It was Claire. My heart sank. I didn't want to pick up. I didn't want to hear her voice, didn't want to deal with the woman who had stood by while I was replaced. But there was something inside me, something I couldn't ignore, that urged me to answer. Maybe it was the last thread of hope I still had. That maybe, just maybe, this time she would understand. Tom. Her voice was sharp, cold even. It wasn't the voice I used to know, the one that would comfort me after a long day. It was the voice of someone who had made a decision, and was now sticking to it. We need to talk. I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the phone. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to hear what she had to say. What is there to talk about, Claire? You and Olivia have made your choices. You don't need me anymore. So why are you calling me now? There was a pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought she had hung up, but then her voice came through. Softer this time. I know you're angry. And I understand why. But Olivia's been through a lot, Tom. I've been trying to keep everything together, but she's struggling, and I think you're the only one who can help her. I almost laughed. Help her? After everything that had happened, after the wedding, after the way they had pushed me aside. She was asking me for help. You've got to be kidding me, I said, my voice low but steady. Do you honestly think I can just walk back into her life and fix everything, after what she did to me? After what you did to me? Claire sighed. I could hear the frustration in it. But there was something else there too. Something that sounded almost like regret. I don't expect you to fix everything, Tom. I just think Olivia needs you. And I'm not asking you to forgive her, or to forget what happened. But you can't just shut her out. She's lost, and I don't know how to help her anymore. The words hit me harder than I thought they would. The truth stung, sharper than I expected. Olivia, the girl I had spent so many years raising, was lost. She had made her decision, yes, but now she was paying the price. And here I was standing in front of a woman who had abandoned me in favor of another man, being asked to help her. To help the daughter who had chosen someone else to be there for her. On the most important day of her life. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could just forget everything, and pretend that it hadn't happened. Part of me wanted to hang up, to walk away and let them both suffer. They had done it to themselves. But another part of me, the part that had spent so many years taking care of them, taking care of Olivia, couldn't just ignore the situation. I don't know if I can do this, Claire, I said, my voice quieter now. I don't know if I can just walk back into her life and pretend that everything is fine. You don't understand what this has done to me. What you and Olivia did to me. You've erased me from everything. Like I was just some part of the background. I've given up everything for this family. And now, I'm nothing. Her voice softened again. I know you're hurting. I know I messed up. But I also know that Olivia needs you. She's struggling with everything, her life, her marriage. She's not the same girl you raised, Tom. She's not the same person anymore, and neither am I. But we can't keep going down this path. You and I both know it's not too late to fix this. But only if we both try. If we don't, we'll both lose her. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do? Could I really go back to them, after everything? Could I forgive them, after all the years of sacrifice? All the love I had poured into them? It felt like too much. But then I thought about Olivia. About the little girl who used to call me dad with such trust and love. The girl who had needed me, who had looked up to me, who had once been my whole world. I couldn't just ignore that. I couldn't just let her fall apart. I'll think about it, I said finally, my voice rough. But don't expect things to go back to normal. Not just like that. There's a lot of damage, Claire, and I'm not sure I can fix it. I ended the call and sat there for a long time, staring at the phone in my hand. The weight of everything was crushing me. I had spent so many years trying to build a life, trying to make everything perfect, trying to give them everything they needed. And now, here I was feeling like a stranger in my own family. But there was still a part of me that couldn't turn my back on them, even after everything. The next few days passed in a blur. I spent most of my time at work, trying to drown out the pain. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Olivia's face so cold, so distant. I saw the way Claire had looked at me when I left. Like she didn't even care. The hurt was too much, and yet I knew I couldn't walk away. Not yet. One night, just as I was about to go to bed, my phone rang again. It was Olivia. I hesitated before answering. Part of me wanted to just ignore it. But the part of me that still cared, still hoped, knew I couldn't. "Dad?" she said, her voice tentative. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to push you away. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to. I need you. I took a deep breath, my heart aching. Olivia, I don't know if I can just forget everything. But I'll be here for you. I'll listen. And if you need help, if you need me, I'll be there. But you have to understand this can't go back to how it was. You have to prove that you need me, that you want me in your life. She was silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was filled with relief. Thank you, Dad. I don't know what I'd do without you. And as I hung up the phone, a small part of me started to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope. Maybe we could start over. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be easy. Nothing would ever be the same again. And I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive them completely. But for Olivia, for the little girl who had once needed me, I was willing to try. The weeks that followed Olivia's call were nothing short of agonizing. I spent my days in a haze, walking through the motions of life, but never truly living it. Every conversation with Claire, every interaction with Olivia, felt like walking on eggshells. I had agreed to be there for Olivia, to listen, to try to rebuild something, but with each passing day, it became more and more clear just how much damage had been done. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It wasn't just about the fact that they had replaced me with David. No, it was deeper than that. It was about trust, about the years I had given, and the years they had taken from me. Olivia had called once, just to apologize. She said she was sorry for everything, for replacing me, for shutting me out. I heard the sincerity in her voice, and it almost made me believe that maybe she hadn't meant to hurt me. Maybe she had been caught up in the whirlwind of everything, of her wedding, of her new life. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was something missing, something I couldn't put my finger on. Her words were empty, hollow, like she was trying to convince herself more than she was trying to convince me. She had apologized, yes, but that wasn't enough. Not anymore. The damage had already been done, and no amount of apologies would erase the hurt, the betrayal. I couldn't stop thinking about what Claire had said when we last talked. Olivia needs you. Those words echoed in my head, over and over. And for a while, I believed them. I believed that maybe I could be the one to help her, to fix what was broken. But as the days dragged on, I started to feel something shift inside me. I was tired of being the one who always had to fix things. I was tired of being the one who always had to pick up the pieces of their broken lives. The truth was, I had been broken too, and no one had bothered to pick up my pieces. One afternoon, I received a call from Claire again. My stomach turned at the sight of her name on my phone. I knew it was coming, but I couldn't bring myself to ignore it. I answered, bracing myself for whatever she was about to say. "Tom," she said, her voice strained, as though she had been holding something back. "I know this is hard, but Olivia's been going through a lot. She's having trouble adjusting to married life. She needs your help. She doesn't know where else to turn." I felt a flash of anger rise in me, but I swallowed it down. Claire, I've been here for you. I've been here for Olivia. I've spent my life trying to hold this family together, and what do I get in return? I get pushed aside. I get replaced. And now you want me to come back and pick up the pieces again? No. I can't do this anymore. I'm not your safety net. I'm not Olivia's safety net. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, the weight of my words settling in. She didn't speak at first, and in that silence, I realized something I had been denying for so long. I wasn't just angry anymore. I wasn't just hurt. I was done. I was done playing the role of the man who fixed everything. The man who was always there to make it all right when everything fell apart. I had given too much, sacrificed too much, and in the end, I had been nothing but a convenience. A fallback option. They hadn't cared about me. They hadn't cared about the years I had spent building a life for us, building a family. They had cared about what I could give them, what I could do for them. And when that wasn't enough anymore, they had discarded me like I was nothing. Claire spoke then, her voice trembling. I don't know what to do, Tom. She's really struggling. I don't know who else to turn to. The desperation in her voice struck me like a punch to the gut. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something that almost made me feel sorry for her. But then I remembered everything, all the years of pain, of neglect, of being ignored, of being replaced. And just like that, the flicker died. You should have thought of that before, Claire, I said, my voice firm. You should have thought about how much I've given, how much I've sacrificed, before you let me be replaced by David. You should have thought about that before you let Olivia shut me out. I never meant for it to be like this, she said. Her voice quiet now, almost pleading. I never meant to hurt you. I just... Stop, Claire, I interrupted, my voice sharp. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your excuses. You've made your choices. And now you have to live with them. Olivia has to live with them. There was another long silence. I could hear her breathing, her attempts to hold it together. And then, almost in a whisper, she said, I just want things to go back to normal, Tom. I want our family back. I want you back. I let out a bitter laugh. It's too late for that, Claire. It's too late to just snap your fingers and make everything go back to the way it was. You can't erase what's happened. You can't erase the way you treated me. You can't erase the way you treated Olivia. Another silence. This time, I didn't wait for her to respond. I didn't need to hear her say anything more. I had made up my mind. I was done. I ended the call and threw my phone on the couch. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the walls, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. It was over. It was all over. And I knew, deep down, that there was no going back. Olivia had made her choices, Claire had made hers, and now it was time for me to make mine. I wasn't going to be the man who picked up the pieces anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who always fixed everything. I was done being the man who was always there when no one else was. From now on, I was going to be the man who took care of himself. The man who walked away when he had to. The man who didn't let anyone take him for granted anymore. It wasn't easy. Walking away from them, from the family I had built, wasn't easy. But as I stood up, as I walked out of that apartment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was free. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The weeks that followed felt like a slow unraveling of everything I had believed in. Everything I had worked for. I had convinced myself I could move on, could rebuild my life without them, but every corner I turned, every quiet moment, was a reminder of what I had lost. Olivia and Claire had made their choices, and I had made mine. I had walked away from them both, but I couldn't escape the empty feeling that lingered. The void left by the family I had poured everything into. They were gone, but the memories, the hopes, the dreams for the life we were supposed to have, they were all still there, haunting me. I tried to focus on my work, on the things that used to bring me peace. But every time I walked through the door to my apartment, the silence hit me like a wave. It was deafening. I had spent so many years living for them, and now I was left with nothing but the remnants of a life that no longer existed. The loneliness crept in, slow and insidious, and there were times when it felt like I might drown in it. Then, one evening, as I was sitting alone in the dim light of my living room, the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me it was Olivia. My heart skipped a beat. For weeks, I had avoided her calls, avoided any contact with her, but now I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for, or what I expected to hear, but I knew I couldn't keep running away. Not from her. Not from the reality of what had happened. I picked up the phone, my breath catching in my throat. "Hello," I said, my voice strained. I tried to keep it calm, but I couldn't help the tremor that slipped through. "Dad?" Olivia's voice came through the line, small, uncertain. It was the same voice I had heard on the wedding day, but this time, it wasn't filled with excitement or joy. It was filled with something else, something that sounded like fear. "Dad, please. I need to talk to you." I closed my eyes, pressing my palm to my forehead. The pain of it all, the hurt, the anger, it all came rushing back. How many times had I heard those words from her? How many times had she called me for help, for comfort, for guidance? But this time felt different. It wasn't just the usual request. It wasn't the typical "Dad, can you help me?" or "Dad, I need something from you." No, this time, there was a desperation in her voice that made my heart ache. "What is it, Olivia?" I asked, my voice quieter now. "What do you need?" I don't know where to start," she said, her voice cracking. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry for everything. For pushing you away. For letting David take your place. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know what I was doing. I was confused. I was lost. And now everything's falling apart." I listened to her words, trying to make sense of them. Trying to find the right thing to say. Part of me wanted to yell at her. To tell her how much she had hurt me. How much I had given up for her. How much I had sacrificed just to be there for her. But I couldn't do it. Not now. Not when she was finally reaching out. It was as if everything I had been holding on to, every ounce of anger, every shred of resentment, was starting to crumble. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Olivia," I said, my voice low. "I don't know if I can forget what happened. What you did to me. What you did to us." The words were bitter on my tongue, and I could feel the weight of them hanging in the air between us. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said quickly, her voice desperate. I just need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted to replace you. I never wanted to push you away. I was so caught up in everything, in the wedding, in my life changing, and I didn't see what I was doing to you. I didn't see how much I was hurting you. And now, I don't know how to fix it." I could hear the sincerity in her voice, the pain, the regret. And as much as I wanted to hold on to my anger, to let her feel the weight of what she had done, a part of me, the part that had always been there for her, couldn't let go of the love I had for her. "You can't just fix this with a few words, Olivia," I said, my voice thick with emotion. This isn't something that can be erased with an apology. You can't just expect me to come running back when you've hurt me so much. I've spent my whole life putting you first, and where did it get me? Replaced, erased, forgotten." "I know," she whispered, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "I know I can't fix everything, and I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know how sorry I am. I just want you to know that I need you. I always have. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do without you." I let her words hang in the air, the silence between us thick and heavy. What was I supposed to say? What was I supposed to do? For so long, I had been the one holding everything together. The one who had sacrificed everything for them. And now, here I was, listening to my daughter beg for my forgiveness. But it wasn't just forgiveness she needed. It was something more. It was something I wasn't sure I could give her. "I don't know, Olivia," I said finally, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I can be the person you need me to be anymore. You've changed. I've changed. And everything has shifted in ways I can't undo." She was silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was small, almost fragile. "I understand, Dad. I know I can't change what happened. But I want to try. I want to try and fix things. Please don't shut me out." I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the flood of emotions that threatened to break through. I didn't know what the future held, or if I could ever truly forgive her. But in that moment, I realized something. Maybe I didn't have to fix everything. Maybe I didn't have to be the one to make it all better. Maybe, for once, it was time for Olivia to fix her own mistakes. But that didn't mean I had to walk away from her. "I'll be here," I said, my voice steady now. But you have to make it right, Olivia. You have to show me that you want to fix this. Not just with words, but with actions. And until you do, I can't be the person you think I am. I won't be." She didn't say anything for a moment, but I could hear her breathing, steadying herself. "I understand. And I will. I promise, Dad." And with that, we hung up. I sat there in the silence, the weight of it all settling over me. The past was still there, lingering like a shadow. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like there was a chance. Maybe not for everything to go back to the way it was, but for something new to begin. Something that wasn't about fixing the past, but about learning from it. The days following our conversation were heavy, each one stretching on endlessly as I grappled with the weight of everything that had happened. Olivia's call, her apology, it had brought some semblance of closure, but also stirred up emotions. I wasn't ready to confront. I had said I'd be there for her, but the more I thought about it, the more unsure I became. Could I really be there for her? Could I ever go back to the man I was before? The man who gave everything, and was left with nothing? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just setting myself up to be hurt all over again. I had given so much, and the way it had been thrown back in my face still stung. Every day, I fought with the urge to shut it all down, to walk away, to tell them both that I was done with the apologies, done with the false promises. But I couldn't do it. No matter how much my mind screamed for me to protect myself, my heart wouldn't let me walk away completely. The love I had for Olivia, the love I had for the woman I had once called my partner, it was still there, buried deep beneath the layers of betrayal and hurt. The problem was, I didn't know how to navigate that love anymore. I didn't know how to reconcile the man who had given everything for them with the man I was becoming now, the man who was learning, painfully, that sometimes love wasn't enough. A few weeks after our last conversation, I got another call. This time, I wasn't sure I wanted to pick up. It was from Claire. I had been avoiding her, avoiding the questions, avoiding the guilt that seemed to radiate from every conversation. But this time, I couldn't escape it. I knew it was coming. I had expected it. I took a deep breath and answered the phone, bracing myself for whatever she had to say. "Tom," her voice came through the line, hesitant, softer than before. "I know things have been tense, and I know you're still angry, but I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. For everything. For not seeing it sooner. For letting you slip away. For letting this all happen. I was blind, and I'm sorry." The words hit me hard, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I had heard apologies before. Hell, I had spent years hearing them. But this felt different. This felt like she was finally acknowledging the hurt. Acknowledging me. "It's too late for apologies, Claire," I said, the bitterness slipping into my voice despite myself. "You can't just apologize and make everything better. You can't erase the last 2 decades of my life with a few words." "I know," she whispered. "But I need you to understand, Tom. I was so focused on trying to keep everything together, on trying to make everything perfect, that I lost sight of what was really important. And now, I'm afraid I've lost you too." The words stung more than I thought they would. The reality that she was admitting that she had lost me, it was like a punch to the gut. But I wasn't sure if I could even feel the pain anymore. The wound had been festering for too long. "You didn't just lose me, Claire," I said, my voice cracking. "You replaced me. You let me go without a second thought. You let Olivia walk away from me. And now you're asking me to come back? To fix things?" "I didn't replace you," she said quickly. "But I see now that I pushed you away. I see now that I let you slip through my fingers. And I can't just let it go. I won't." I was silent for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. The weight of everything we had been through, everything I had given up, felt like it was suffocating me. I had tried so hard to hold on to the family we had built. But somewhere along the way, they had drifted. And I had let them. I had given up so much. Thinking it would be enough. Thinking it would be the one thing that would hold us all together. But now, I wasn't sure if I could ever put that trust back in them. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Claire," I said, my voice low. "I don't know if I can just forget everything you did. The way you let me be erased. The way you let Olivia walk away without a second glance." "I understand," she said softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "But I'm asking you, please, don't shut me out. Don't shut Olivia out. She needs you, Tom. I need you. And I know you need us too. I felt the weight of her words settling in my chest. There was so much history between us. So much love. But there was also so much hurt, so much betrayal. How could I ever look past that? How could I ever look past the years I had spent trying to make it work, only to be replaced by another man? How could I ever forgive the woman who had stood by and watched it happen? I don't know, Claire, I said, my voice shaky now. I don't know if I can ever go back to that. To being the person I was before. I don't know if I can be the person you want me to be anymore. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. I don't expect you to be that person, Tom. I just want you to be here. To be with us. To give us a chance to make things right. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of her words crash over me. I wasn't sure I could do it. I wasn't sure I could put myself through the pain of it all again. But as I thought about it, as I thought about the life I had lost, the life I had tried so hard to hold together, I realized something. I couldn't just walk away from them. Not forever. Not without giving it one last try. Maybe we couldn't go back to what we were. Maybe things would never be the same again. But I couldn't let the past define me. I couldn't let it break me. I'll try, Claire, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll try, for Olivia. But I can't promise anything. The relief in her voice was almost palpable. Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. I hung up the phone and sat there for a long time, my heart heavy with the weight of what was coming next. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. It would be painful, full of challenges and obstacles, but maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to rebuild something. Maybe I could find a way to forgive them. Maybe I could find a way to forgive myself. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me believe that maybe, just maybe, I could get back what I had lost. It had been a few months since I had made the decision to try again, to give Olivia and Claire one last chance. I had promised myself that I wouldn't just walk away, that I wouldn't let the past completely define me. But the road I had chosen was never going to be easy. The truth was, I didn't know how much more I could take. Each day, each encounter with Olivia, each conversation with Claire felt like a test of my strength, my patience, and my ability to keep it all together. It wasn't about fixing what had been broken, not anymore. It was about surviving the wreckage of it all and somehow finding a way to move forward. I had made the choice to try, but deep down, I wasn't sure if I could ever trust them again. I didn't know if the bond we had once shared could ever be fully restored, or if I could ever stop feeling like I had been discarded, replaced. I had been the one who had always been there, who had put them first, who had sacrificed everything to make sure they had everything they needed. And now, it felt like I was left with nothing, forced to rebuild a life that didn't quite fit anymore. The anger that had once burned so hot was starting to dull, but the hurt, the betrayal, it lingered, always hovering just beneath the surface. Olivia had been trying, in her own way, to make amends. She called more often now, not just to apologize, but to check in. She would send texts, little messages of encouragement, or even just thinking of you texts. Like she was trying to remind me that she still cared, that she hadn't completely forgotten the man who had raised her. But there was something about those texts, something that felt hollow. She would say things like, "I'm so sorry for everything," but they always felt like words without meaning. Like she was repeating something she thought I wanted to hear, not something that came from the heart. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was genuinely remorseful for the way she had treated me. But part of me that had been hurt so deeply, couldn't just forgive her so easily. Not yet. Claire, on the other hand, seemed to be genuinely trying to rebuild what we had. I could see it in the way she spoke to me. The way she tried to make up for the years we had lost. She would occasionally ask if I wanted to come over for dinner, or if we could just talk. But each time, I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I was ready to let her back in. There were times when I could see the old Claire, the woman I had loved so deeply. The woman who had once been my partner. The woman I had built a life with. But there were also times when I saw the woman who had let me down so completely. The woman who had replaced me in favor of another man. Who had pushed me aside when I was no longer needed. It wasn't until one evening, a few months after I had agreed to give them another chance, that I finally found myself standing at the doorstep of their house. Olivia had invited me over for dinner. At first, I had planned to decline, to tell her that I wasn't ready, that I needed more time. But something inside me changed. Maybe it was the guilt, the nagging feeling that I was shutting them out too completely. Maybe it was because I had been holding on to my anger for so long, and it was time to let it go. Or maybe, just maybe, I had missed them. Missed the family we used to be. I stood outside their door for a long moment, my hand hovering over the doorbell, unsure of what to do. Was I making a mistake? Was I walking back into something that was doomed to fail? I didn't know, but I had to find out. I had to see if the relationship we once had was worth fighting for. I pressed the doorbell and waited. When the door finally opened, Olivia stood there, a hesitant smile on her face. Her eyes, once so cold, were warm now, like she was genuinely happy to see me. She stepped aside, letting me in, and for a moment, I could almost pretend that nothing had ever happened. Dinner was quiet at first. Claire was sitting across from me, and Olivia was to my left. We ate in silence, each of us trying to find the words to break the ice. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and uncomfortable, like we were all walking on eggshells. But as the meal went on, the conversation slowly started to flow. It wasn't easy, nothing about this was easy, but it was a start. Claire asked about work, about how I had been keeping busy, about the things I was doing to move forward. Olivia chimed in here and there, offering a laugh or a comment, trying to keep the mood light. But beneath the surface, I could feel it. I could feel the hurt. I could feel the distance that still existed between us. The gap that couldn't just be bridged with a few casual conversations and a few apologies. After dinner, we sat in the living room, drinking wine and talking. At first, it felt like we were tiptoeing around the elephant in the room. But then, Claire spoke up. "Tom," she said, her voice hesitant but determined. "I know things have been hard. I know I hurt you. But I'm asking you now, not as your wife or your ex-wife, but as a woman who cares about you, please. Don't shut us out. Don't shut me out. I know I've done things that I can never take back, but I want to try. I want to fix what we had." I looked at her then, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the woman I had once loved. The woman I had spent so many years building a life with. The woman who had made mistakes, but who was still standing before me, vulnerable, asking for another chance. And in that moment, I realized something. I realized that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late for us. Maybe I could learn to forgive. Maybe I could let go of the anger, the resentment, and let myself believe that we could find a way to move forward. But it wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be a simple fix. There was too much history between us. Too much pain, and I wasn't sure if I could ever fully trust either of them again. But in that moment, I also realized that I didn't have to fix everything. I didn't have to erase the past. I just had to move forward, one step at a time. And if that meant rebuilding a relationship with Claire and Olivia, then I was willing to try. "I don't know if I can ever forget what happened," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "But I'm willing to try. For us, for the family we used to be." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was hopeful. It was the first time in a long time that I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could get through this together. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe it. Did this father make the right choice, or did he give up on his family too soon? The ending is more powerful than you can imagine. You'll never guess what happens next. Watch until the end to see how this incredible journey comes full circle. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button if you're as stunned as I am. The story teaches us that no matter how much we sacrifice for those we love, we can never take their presence for granted. In relationships, whether family, friends, or partners, trust, communication, and mutual respect are the foundation. When those bonds break, it's not easy to repair them, but with patience, honesty, and a willingness to try, healing is possible. In society, we must recognize the value of each person, not just what they can provide. Love isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. If we all embrace this, perhaps we can build stronger, more understanding connections across the nation.